guys. Thanks for taking the time out to listen to my podcast. Just want to let you guys know, if you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. With everything you need all in one place. Listen, I was able to do this very easy. Anchor has the tools that allow you to record, edit your podcast right from your phone or the computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and a lot more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, it's free. Please download the Anchor app. Go to anchor.fm to get started. Take it easy. FYI, I am damaged. Welcome. Thank you for joining me for another episode of FYI, I Am Damaged. I'm joined by Claudio, a photographer and entrepreneur. Claudio, thank you for joining us.
Oscar, thank you so much for having me. It's great. I've been looking forward to this.
Great, and I've been looking forward to having you ever since we discussed and were trading notes on all the stuff that we've done, how you are an amazing photographer, and how...
Working on it.
Your podcast idea, which we'll keep it in the vault. And
okay.
I hope you do something amazing with that. And
Thanks.
Everything else. We came up on a topic that I thought would be great for an episode, and it's about homeschooling. I was very surprised that you have your two kids in homeschool.
Right.
I was very interested to learn about all that. I thought it would just make a great episode. So...
Curious, before we spoke about that the last time we were together, did you know that I was homeschooling, or that was
Absolutely
new to you right there?
No, that was new to me. The only time since we experienced each other was when you did a photography shoot
long time
ago.
For your firstborn?
Yes.
And he was 1.
Yes.
And he is how old now?
11.
So it was 10 years ago.
Yep.
Okay, there we go. Just to put a timestamp on it. And so that's the first time we met was 10 years ago for your son's first birthday.
Right.
And then we met again for your...
It was the Yo Gabba Gabba birthday, I think.
Sure.
That was his first one, yeah.
Yes.
No, wait. It was a Yo Gabba Gabba, because we rolled it up.
You would know more than I would, but I wouldn't remember.
Honestly, we used someone. No, I'm thinking of the baby shower. We had a photographer for that, but when it was his first birthday, absolutely, yeah.
It was Yo Gabba Gabba?
Yeah,
okay,
the birthday.
Let's talk about Yo Gabba Gabba.
So yeah, I'm sorry. You had a question.
The question I had for you was, have you ever met anyone who has homeschooled their kids?
No, I have not.
Okay.
That's why I thought it was so interesting that a lot of questions came to mind as the dynamic to it. I thought it was very interesting. I haven't really heard anything super negative about it. Nothing really bad pertaining to it.
Right.
It's just another form of learning.
Sure.
I just thought it was interesting. Now I know somebody who is doing it, for their kids, and yeah, that's why we're here.
Great. I look forward to talking about it every chance I get. I try to speak to people about it. For those who don't know, I have my own photo studio. I've been in business for 12 years, and I have had my physical photo studio for 8 years, which means that I've had a lot of families, many, come through my studio. And trust me, every opportunity I get, I try to find a reason to bring that up. And I promise you, 90% of the time when I say I homeschool my kids, the parents perk up. And they can't... I have questions, but what about socializing, or what about exams, or what about college, and so on and so forth. And most of them are intrigued because I feel that many parents would like to homeschool their kids.
Right.
And so I'm always eager to have this conversation. So it's great that we could put it on this platform, and then we could, put it in the universe, and hopefully it can help people. Homeschooling can't be for everybody, and It's not for everybody, but it's for many people, and it's for many people who are like me and my wife. And so I hope that for those who are a little bit hesitant or apprehensive about doing something like that your podcast and this conversation can help them do that. So I look forward to talking about it.
And it's even more important to get it from the father's perspective, because honestly, anytime anything will come up in the news about homeschooling, the front facing would be the mother, and the father would just come in and be like, yeah,
sure.
It's great to get that type of in-depth perspective about something like this. Hopefully it'll open up a lot of eyes.
Yeah.
and that more fathers can speak up that I'll follow my wife's lead. It's your kid. You both
Sure.
can lead.
Yeah,
There's
100%.
no one leading position.
Each has their own separate responsibilities because they play different roles.
Right.
Yeah, and I play a different role than my wife. And as we talk about it, I'll give you insight into the role that I play in homeschooling and the role my wife plays in homeschooling and how we do that together. And it's not equal.
Right.
It's different for each of us and the role that we play in homeschooling the children.
So how did the discussion start with your wife, and what was the tipping point to lead into let's just go do this?
Right. The tipping point was, I don't know if this answers your question, but essentially what stops most people from...
Or was it a gradual discussion up to it? Or
Yeah.
How did that
something
go?
like that, you kind of have to talk about it because it's a radical decision in today's society to pull your child out of school. And so it couldn't have been, it had to be gradual. I meant the thing that happened that allowed it to be was that I lost my job. But also, while I had lost my job, I was building up my business.
Right.
So I was able to do that from home. Before, working from home was a thing, right?
Yeah.
Now it's everywhere, right? Because of post-COVID and all that stuff. But so I was able to, I lost my job, which was the best thing that ever happened. And I had...
What did you used to do?
So I worked, I never had any serious jobs. The last job I had was photography supervisor at Madame Tussauds Wax Museum down on 42nd Street. So Madame Tussauds is all over the world. There's not a main one, the main one is in London, but there's one in New York, Times Square, and I worked there for 6 years. And, I was one of their best employees, so on and so forth. But it's one of those jobs, it doesn't pay very well. I never had a serious job. Here's some foreshadowing. I didn't graduate college. I hated school. Yeah. So here you go. You kind of get like, oh, well, there you go. That's why you homeschool his children. But it does have something to do with that. So, yes, I lost my job there because I was so focused on my business, which is a good reason to lose your job for it. Not because I'm lazy or whatever. So, and then my wife was like, keep going. You don't have to get a job, which is the best thing ever, to have your spouse go for it, And all that leads to the opportunity, the open door that says, oh, shoot, we have one parent at home. The other parent is working because, we need two incomes. But that, whether it was me or my wife, whoever would have happened, we probably would have said, yeah, that's it. Let's start homeschooling the kid. And at that point, we only had one child, which was my oldest.
Right.
He's 17 now, and he went all the way up to 3rd grade.
Public school?
Public and 1 year of charter school.
Oh, okay.
Which we put him in charter school. I still don't know what charter schools are. Whatever. Maybe you'll let me know. But it shows you how little I cared about that the system in general. So I was itching to rebel against the system or that institute. You know what I'm saying? I just knew that it's something that doesn't work for many people. It does work for some, but it doesn't work for many. I mean, the numbers just don't add up, right? So it's okay if it works for others, but it doesn't work for most people. So why not change it? So what we did is that we took destiny into our own hands and we changed it for at least our family.
Right.
And hopefully conversations like this will inspire people to do it if they can, and if it fits them to do it as well. But lost my job. My wife says go for it, meaning keep doing your business. Don't get a job. All that is going to do is sideline you. And we took that opportunity to keep kids home. So actually, my youngest was born, but he was like 1 or 2. So we hadn't crossed that road yet with him in school.
Right.
So he's the youngest now. We only have 2 children. The youngest one, he is 11 years old, about to be 12 in August, and he's never been to school. So there goes that. We got one that's been all the way to 3rd grade, so he's experienced some aspect of it. And then there's the 11-year-old who's never been to school. So that's how it happened, essentially. We had the opportunity. And I always tell people that, if you want to do homeschooling, you might not be able to because you have a 9-to-5, because you're working, so on and so forth. And so, but keep it in mind in case an opportunity arises where one parent starts a business and they're able to leave their job. And maybe, believe it or not, you can homeschool your kids from work. You can homeschool your kids from whatever business you run. And we partially did that because when we first opened our photo studio, my kids were coming to the studio with me.
Right.
Now they're older, they can stay home, but we did it that way. And so that's essentially how it happened for us. I assume it's going to be different for everybody because there's no structure for this.
Right.
There's it's just however you want to do it. And so that's how it happened with us, and we took the opportunity and took advantage of it, and that's how it happened for us.
So initially, what did your first son think, and once you got your second child into it, what did they think, and were they able to at a certain point in time voice their opinion on it? And how old are they now, and has that really changed? Did they really just jump into like a fish to water, or is there some instances where it's a little bit challenging?
Yeah, no, it's gonna be challenging. There's gonna be challenges in there, and there's gonna be insecurity from the parent side. We'll talk more about that. But to answer your question, first of all, the youngest one doesn't know what school is, right? He was born into homeschooling, so they're really, I mean, his opinion, whatever it is going to be skewed because he's never been to school. He's never had the experience of going, well, I don't want to do this, or I do want to do this. He's always known to be at home and live the structured family that we have, the way that we built it. And that's all he knows. He's 11 and he's lived. I mean, if you ask my 11-year-old son today if he wants to go to school, he's going to say no. Right.
Okay.
He might not know any better. Maybe he does.
But and I'm assuming that they have friends that do go to the established school,
right?
And they kind of learn things from them, but not, hey, come over to the dark side. No, it's if they're learning, oh, you do that here, well, I do this here,
right?
And do they come to you with differentiating opinions? And if they do, does it have enough weight to consider what their opinion is regarding this?
Right.
Even though you're not going to change the whole setup.
Right.
Just for one little conversation or one thing that may make you weigh what they're saying in this sort of aspect.
Well, my oldest son, he's 17, and believe it or not, I've asked him multiple times, but now this year more than ever, I've asked him, do you want to go to school?
Was it the first time, or is it a reoccurring thing?
No,
year after year?
We've asked him the last 3 years.
Oh, okay.
Because he's older now.
Yeah.
He might want to go to school.
Yeah.
So now here's the, so now we're dealing with a teenager. He's 17 years old now, right? So he's about to be 18 in December. I remember we asked him, and, for the last 2 years, because now we're like, okay, he should be in high school now. That's when he's supposed to be there. So I think me and my wife are close to deciding that we're just going to put him in a senior year of high school for the heck of it.
Really?
Yeah. And so this is the funny thing about it, that it's not, we don't care about the academics aspect of it. We don't care about the college aspect of it. So we're going in like free. Now, ask me, if my son is going to go to school, he's 17 years old, do I want him to get good grades? The answer is yes. Simply because I want him to challenge himself, that you can function in that structure. Just so you know. Personally, because I remember doing that in school. I gave 2 fucks about a diploma or college, but I do remember my 5th year of high school, I decided to put my head down and go, okay, what the fuck is the big deal? Let me see if I can do this shit. So that way I don't walk out of this shit and think that I'm a fucking idiot and I was actually scared and that's why I didn't do well. So I made sure that my 5th year, and actually it was my half of the 4th year and the entire 5th year where I put my head down and I was getting A's and B's and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it gave me a lot of confidence because I was like, okay, I'm not a fucking idiot. And we're teenagers, we're insecure, we don't know. We have the whole universe telling us that if you don't go to school, you're an idiot. If you don't go to school, you're a loser. If you don't go to school, you won't have a future. And I'm not going to lie to you, of course, that stuff was in my head. I was terrified.
Right.
When it comes to my oldest son, we are just like, want to put him in so he could kind of get into all the shits with the girls and the boys and just kind of like fill that out. And to be honest, I wish I would have done it a year earlier, meaning I wouldn't have asked him last year. I just would have threw him in there and said, fuck it. So that's what we're doing this year, but he's a little bit more like, yeah, whatever. It's fine. I could do it. But before it would be a no. So he's 17 years old now saying maybe, which maybe for a teenager probably means yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what we're going to do this year in September, hopefully. So we have to get on that because, we've been homeschooling him for so long. His opinion has always been no. But we've only asked as of late. But, who the hell doesn't want to be home?
Yeah, that's true.
Who the hell doesn't want to be home? And also to set a kind of to give some perspective on the structure of homeschooling. Homeschooling is a 24-hour thing. and it's a 365-day thing. There is no this time, that time. And I don't speak to many or any other parents who homeschool their kids. I don't know anybody.
No groups or anything like that?
No, I don't know anybody, right? I wouldn't be surprised if many people approach homeschooling the same way me and my wife do, despite the fact that we have never interacted with any other parents or learned from anybody else on how to do it. But it's a 20, and what you learn when you homeschool your kids, that it's 24 hours, 365. So what does that mean? That means that they're always learning, and they're learning everything, not this thing or that thing. They're learning everything. What are we talking about? Business, mortgage, financing, cooking, repairs, physical education, social studies, and then all the typical stuff that we learned in school, right? Growing up, the science and all. But it's all so organic. It's not sit down, 9 a.m., wake up, do this, do that. It's none of that. It's we could be riding bike and stop somewhere, and we're going to talk about that tree. Or we're going to see an interaction between a group of people or some people and then stop and have a conversation about that. And these are these things that later on, hopefully, are going to be instrumental in his life. These are things that he learned and they learned and picked up. And we're teaching so much that it's just so normal for us. We just don't know what the difference is at this point.
Yeah, I was having a discussion with my wife, and I told her, I said, in junior high school, in like 5th, 6th grade, I told her, I said, I wish they would bring back home economics. It may sound like a weird statement, but that's what made me comfortable with learning how to cook.
Interesting.
Because I did that. The teacher that we had, she was an older lady. A lot of times she would just sit down and teach us, like, do that, watch with your fingers and the knife and everything. Had us preteen or teen just playing with all these things in the school kitchen for that class.
And the class is called Home Economics?
Home Economics.
And that's what Home Economics is?
It's like home shit. And
really?
Teaching us how to cook, what to do. We made some dishes. I don't remember. The one thing I remember was the class slicing up chocolate to do something like a dessert.
Oh, man.
And I told her, I said, I wish they had that. I said, I wish they had that now.
I never had anything like that.
Yeah.
And I love cooking.
I loved it.
Can you imagine?
I'm so comfortable with being in the kitchen and cooking for my family when my wife and I were dating, because she's like, you cook? Wow. You don't just pick up the phone and order? I'm like, no. Besides, I'm the youngest of 3, and my mom was like, you're either going to do or do not. So if you want to learn, you'll learn, and all that other shit. And I'm like, all right. And then with that in school, reinforcing it, I loved it. I freaking love it. I'm not afraid to pick up anything to learn. No, absolutely not. And I kept learning more.
Right.
Hitting up YouTube, doing all these things, picking up little things, and you see men or women who are chefs, and you do this, you do that, and I'm like, like I took to it.
Let me ask you something then, Oscar, in that vein. So, that's one class that you gravitated to. Were there others? Maybe there were, but I'm assuming that most of them you didn't gravitate to.
Math isn't my strong suit.
Okay.
I did gravitate. I'm still an intellectual, but I gravitated to, in slightly to political science, but also to science. Right. The physical sciences, health, those type of things.
Okay.
So the sciences more than math. RG's the freaking numbers nerd. She's great with numbers. She does math with our kids, but when it comes to science, health, referencing, anything, just general knowledge, like deep into it with detail, it's like, no, go talk to your father.
Can you imagine you in middle school having your curriculum curated for you specifically, tailored for you? Can you imagine? And of course, I'm not going to hold it against the school system because it's so robust. There's too many kids. How can they narrow down every child and curate curriculum for each child? But when you homeschool your kids, you could curate for them. But that's not necessarily a good thing if you don't have control. So you want to curate stuff for your children, and we wish we had stuff curated for us, but then you also want to teach them how to learn stuff that is not curated for them. So it doesn't matter whether you go to school or not. You're going to have to learn stuff that you don't like learning. But the way school does it, it makes us hate the fucking thing. that they're stuffing down our throats. And again, I can't hold it against a system because it's so robust and they're dealing with so many factors, children, parents, so on and so forth, budget, all that stuff. But
outdated curriculum.
Come on, man.
In certain instances.
Come on, man. That's so dangerous.
Yeah.
But learning how to teach a child or anyone how to learn something that they don't want to learn. And that means making it palatable.
Right.
Right? And that's one of the powers of homeschooling. Yes, you curate for them. They like this. They like painting. They like drawing. They like gym. They like this. But then, then you have to learn business and financing. And my kids don't know whether they don't or don't like that. We make it interesting.
Right.
You know why? Because it's relevant. We're buying a freaking house. You need to know about this.
Yeah.
You're 8 years old. Sorry, in our case, we're buying a house now. My oldest is 17. The other one is 11. Let's just talk about the youngest one because he would be the one least likely to be interested in something like that.
I have an 11-year-old. I know how it goes.
Right. They're interested. You know what they're interested in.
Oh, yeah.
But we found a way for our 11-year-old to be interested in financing, in business, in marketing, in mortgages because we're living it.
Yeah.
It's not something where we made you sit in front of a blackboard. You put the word mortgage on it, on the freaking blackboard, and then went and do a fucking tree fucking graph. Mortgages lead to this, and then and granted, they don't even teach us mortgages in school. But can you imagine? You're right.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if they did teach us mortgage at 11? Now, my son has a good grasp and understanding of mortgages, and fine, he's ahead. He's like way ahead of like. I'm going to speak for both of us than we've ever been. We learned it when we had to face it.
Yeah.
So, and even if he forgets it, he won't forget it. You know why? Because that stuff sits in our subconscious. Just like the home economics in you.
It's very easy to reabsorb, absolutely.
Right, exactly. So it sits in your head, it's subconscious, it's there ready to be ignited again or detonated. And when it's time for him to buy his house or buy a car or get a loan, he has a general understanding about it. And there goes the beauty of homeschooling or curating an education, however you want to say it, right? I wish somebody would have put a camera in my head.
Yeah.
In middle school, the way you got home economics and you were drawn to that, I wish somebody would have put a camera because I was born to do that.
Yeah.
It was in my genetics. My mom loves taking photos. And again, I'm not holding it against them, but I wish somebody would have done that. And there's no way for them to have known that. But it's unfortunate.
That's why I love that I, pat myself on the back or anything. But that's one of the reasons why I love doing this podcast. And a lot of people think having damage in the name, it references something negative. It's like, no, the point is that you may have suffered some, quote unquote, some type of damage from that.
Sure.
Being, regretful that, damn, why didn't I get some advantages to be who I am now, but earlier.
Sure.
But then you're taking what you felt kind of damaged you in a way and then learning from that and then moving it forward with your kids.
Right.
And that's why I tell people we're not here to deal with all the stuff that we may or may not regret, which is something in passing. I do it all the time.
Right.
But I take all that and I don't look at my son as like, oh, you're going to learn when you get old. No, let's learn now. Let's learn now.
Every time.
We were getting so exhausted when we were house hunting. We would take the kids with us.
Okay.
And they barely had a summer when we were taking them, and then they were like, Dad, what is this all about? Of course, Max was 6, but Brandon was he was about 6, 7. Brandon was about maybe 9, 10. But he's they're both smart, but he was very inquisitive about certain things.
You'd be surprised what they want to know.
Yeah.
What they want to know.
With the math, the numbers, and he would hear us talk and everything, and he was asking. We would tell him, I was like, but then I had to be patient about it. I had to stop and think, because the one thing that came to me is, how can I explain it to him that he can learn and not just his eyes gloss over?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And just so I can relate to him, and I could see that that's one of the best things about homeschooling is that you know your child.
Yes.
You know what they can take in quickly and what takes a little more time to kind of like get in there.
And you learn how to teach.
Right.
Like you just said, you got to find a way to to word this right to him. You don't deter him or derail him in this language that you're about to talk mortgages and financing and all this stuff. And so that's key right there. Absolutely. So you learn how to teach. I'm naturally good at that in general. So even before I had kids, so it's something that naturally is in me. I talk a lot, I'm expressive. I have
all positives.
Right. It's something that is just very natural. And it's something that I think that is everybody's responsibility.
Yeah.
And you have to find it in yourself, in your own way, organically, sustainably, to find a way to talk to your kids and teach them everything. There should be nothing that is, quote unquote, boring or beyond them.
Right.
You just have to find a way to flip that for them. Hey, this is important. At the end of this rainbow, there's gold.
Yeah.
And that's an incentive. Okay, and my 11-year-old doesn't know what he is not or is supposed to know. He just knows everything he knows.
Yeah.
So you could relate. You know that when we're children, especially in our communities, there's stuff we're not supposed to know. Oh, that's none of your business. What are you? Oh, because they underestimate the capacity of our brain, what we can or can't take in. Oh, no. So, but you know why? Because they don't want to explain it, because they don't know how to explain it, because maybe they barely understand it.
And they don't understand. I could be wrong. They don't understand that they could be sidelining a savant.
Oh my God,
And they don't realize that until later on. Like, shit, I should have been
maybe
speaking on
this.
this.
Maybe they'll never realize that. But yes, you're right.
No, was all of this hard to start and set up? What were some of the hoops that you had to go through to set this all up and initiate it for your first child, which of course it would have been easier for the second child coming along, but for the first child, setting this all up, getting this all in motion. Tell us what was that like?
Yeah. So for anyone listening to this podcast, the way I'm about to answer this might be a little bit controversial.
Nobody listens to this podcast.
So relatively controversial, but the controversy aligns with the kind of person that I am. I'm going to speak for myself because my wife is not here. The kind of person that I am. I'm a very rebellious individual. And it's something that suited me very well up until this point, right? So I say that to say this. I don't give a fuck about no fucking paperwork, no fucking test, no fucking board who has to look over my fucking kid. I understand why, if you homeschool your kids, why there needs to be an overlooker, because they want to make sure that you're not fucking abusing your kids. You're not teaching them nothing and they're fucking gonna come out stupid and incapable of working in society. I understand, but that's not me.
So now, they're very strict like that?
They're not very strict. And so that's a flaw in that system.
So which DOE are you referring to that you had to set this up with? So just a reference.
That's where my wife comes in. I'll give you the general information that I understand about it.
Okay.
So essentially, what I remember is once you've decided that you want to homeschool, you let the school that they're attending, let them know that. They actually, I believe that they help you with the process. It's a very relatively simple process. I don't remember getting a lot of feedback. You have to fill out an application, I believe, with the DOE, Department of Education, right? I'm assuming. My son was in public school and then a charter school at the end. And then they designate a local school to you. And the reason why they do that is because that you kind of report to them.
Okay.
So we were in the Bronx. It was a school across the street, literally across the street, and we reported to them. He never attended that school,
right?
But we reported to them, and what that meant is that, the way I understand it, every 2 years they have to take a state exam, and so they would go to. And I remember him doing it once. He goes to that school and he takes the state exam,
right?
And I think it is important that they take the state exam, because the state exam only measures reading, writing, and math. Why? Because they're essentials to be a well-articulated, functioning human being in America, right? History is relative.
Right.
Science is relative. Religion is relative. It's all about how and what you want to learn. But math is math. Reading is reading and writing is writing. You can't get past that. You have to teach that and learn that the same way that everybody else learns and teach that. Otherwise, you're not going to be an adequate adult.
Right.
When it's time, when time comes for you to be in society. So that's the only thing the exam is about: reading, writing, and math. Nothing else. Every 2 years, they're supposed to take that state exam. I think you have the choice of taking it every year if you want, just if you want to measure your kid against everyone else, so on and so forth. And you're supposed to send in reports about your curriculum, about what you're teaching them. And it's a very general report, something you write out, and you say, well, we're learning about this. If you're teaching them religion, or you're teaching them science, or math, whatever you're teaching them, you're supposed to report in like every quarter or something like that.
Right.
But of course, what happens is that we just kind of we did it. My wife did it for some time. We stopped doing it a long time ago. And nobody came knocking on my door. Nobody sent a letter to my door.
Really?
Nobody placed a phone call. And that's actually not a good thing. Luckily, we're responsible people and we care about our kids. But I don't know if you know where I'm going. But there could be parents who are pulling their kids out of school and homeschooling them, and then doing wild, crazy things with their kids. Because what happens, Oscar, when your kid goes to school, if your kid comes to school with a black guy, it catches. Yeah, right? Yeah. Okay, so when you send your kids to school, it actually sometimes helps in the sense that if you're an abusive parent, or if you're a parent who smokes and drinks, or an outsider can kind of get some insight from the child, whether it's how they're acting, the child, or even physically, right? Like if they have we've all heard, seen it on TV, or maybe known somebody who came to school with a black and blue or a beat up eye or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And obviously it's a sign of abuse at home. It's unfortunate. And so schools filter that stuff out. It's good in that way, right?
Yeah.
But in homeschooling, I mean, these people, I could be doing everything to my son that's bad under the sun, and they were not on top of us. But me being a rebellious person, I didn't care in regards to me, because I'm like, I know we're good, and I don't need you guys in my business. I don't need you guys calling me, writing me letters. And so my wife was the one who did all that stuff, because I give two fucks. It's my child. I dare you come to my door, and I can say you're going to take my son away because I didn't write a fucking report to you or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, what are you going to do? Take him away? Because that's the only thing that's going to matter to me. You're going to take my son away, and I'm going to go down fighting. My wife took care of most of that stuff. We didn't have to do that for long, because then we just kind of stopped doing it. So now the 11-year-old, forget it. He's not even in the system, bro. Really? So let's talk there. Okay, and I'm okay with it. Vaccinations. My 11-year-old has the minimum vaccinations, because schools are a bottleneck for vaccinations. I'm not saying that that's what they were built, but every year you need vaccinations in order to attend whatever school you're going to go to. So it's a way to, it's just a convenient system to, okay, this is how we make sure that everyone in America is vaccinated. Most people go to public school or some sort of school that requires, vaccinations, right?
Right.
So my 11-year-old has the minimal vaccinations. I don't even know what he has or does not. And so again, like I said, the rebellious aspect of me, this is it fits perfectly with me. Luckily we're responsible parents. We're good. We're also
matters. That's what matters.
And we're learning. And of course, if homeschool becomes a standard where there's a lot of people doing it, then I know that there'll be systems in place that'll be more, more ironclad to make sure that kids are not being abused at home and stuff like that. Because so little people do it, people like us slip through the cracks. But if you're responsible enough in today's day and age to homeschool your kids, you probably care about them.
Yeah.
You don't, and people who don't care about the kids don't want them around. They want them in school.
Yeah.
Because they're fucking bothersome. They're two people who don't care about them. My kids are not bothersome to me because I love my kids.
Now, this had to have some growing pains. What were some that were on either side, from the the teacher parent to the child student?
Sure.
From that dynamic, what were the gems that you pulled from overcoming these pains?
Man, something as simple as teaching my son the clock. 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, blah, blah, blah.
Analog, baby.
Analog, there you go, analog. I remember, so this was very early on, before I had learned my style of teaching my son. Mm-hmm. We kind of did the structured thing where I would stay home and I would tell my son, okay, today we're going to learn the analog clock. Man, I sucked. And I got so frustrated. Yes, because I went in structured instead of organically. Right now I know that I could teach my son anything in passing. It doesn't have to be sit down, There goes the clock. Do you know what? Okay, if this hand is here, this hand, and I remember getting so frustrated, and unfortunately, I got frustrated with him, but it wasn't his fault.
Right.
It was that I was a bad teacher in that particular example, and I remember it was very early on because I didn't know how this homeschool stuff would work, even though I manifested it. I was still sitting there going, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, what does this, and over time we did develop styles, and they were more organic and so on and so forth. And again, we didn't have any guidance, we didn't have any examples, to teach us on how to do this. So I remember getting so frustrated at him, and if I would have continued like that, my son would have suffered so much because I was frustrated. And now I could imagine how a teacher,
with 30 kids.
Yeah. Dealing with stuff like that. I'm dealing with my son, one child, and he's getting it wrong, and I'm so frustrated. And it was not his fault. It is not his fault. And I'm sure my son knows the analog clock today, and I don't even remember teaching it to him. and there's stuff that my 11-year-old knows, and I go, babe, I don't remember teaching this to him. And I think it's because it's an organic thing. They're picking it up because it's everywhere in our environment, and we've taught our kids how to learn. You're going to hear me say that a lot. It sounds weird, but you have to learn how to learn.
Yeah.
And you have to learn how to teach.
No, I agree.
You have to learn how to read, and by learning how to read, it doesn't mean that you know how to read. It means that you need to learn how to enjoy reading so you can read.
Right.
Because you could read all you want, but if you don't know how to enjoy reading, you won't ever read. And reading is important.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the I forgot how you phrased it. You phrased it very well, but it's one of those setbacks in the beginning. But of course it happened early, and it makes sense, right? So I'm inexperienced, and we don't know what we're doing, and I feel real bad about that because And it was just a fucking analog clock. Luckily, it didn't go any more than that. I'm a quick learner, and I'm like, okay, Claudio, we can't do this. You can't be frustrated at your child because he's not getting something right away, so on and so forth. And then it was, from there on, and I don't remember any more instances of that anymore.
And then you notice that face, that blank stare that...
Man, you're reminding me. I feel so bad. So bad.
I'm in the same boat because it was very hard for me a lot in the beginning when they would come with the homework, and they would learn in school, but then you're there to reinforce it with the homework.
Yeah, there you go.
And mind you, I wish they knew, look, you're dealing with a parent that was early on diagnosed with, what do you call that? I just had it in my head. That you see shit backwards. Dyslexic, yeah.
And you're speaking of yourself?
Yeah, I'm speaking of myself. So I'm totally with you where it's like you have to learn how to teach them. You have to learn yourself to make sure that they're learning what you're teaching them. And how I see things is very weird, slightly OCD-ish, dyslexic. So imagine somebody who sees things in a weird way but always has things structured in a sort of way that it has to be a certain way. So I'm basically putting the blocks in order but upside down and backwards. So I got to learn how to decipher that and then do that within myself, and then to try and teach another child who's not dealing with that.
Sure.
So it's one of the things where one of my French teacher in high school, he would say, Mr. Hollywood.
How's your French, by the way?
All I could do is 1 through 10.
You just made a point. You just made my point. Go on.
But the only reason why is I didn't gravitate towards it. Later on, I wish I did.
Sure.
But I had a great teacher.
Okay.
That was the link that was there, that I can say that he was an amazing teacher. He was funny, and he made learning it. If I had the chance, if I wanted to, I could have actually did something in that vein. But I always refer to him saying that he's like, guys, think of it this way. If you're speaking to somebody in any language, let's say English and Spanish. Your English is first, you learned your Spanish. You're speaking to somebody who knows Spanish, but they learned their English. So he's like, think of the dynamic. You have to take your English, translate it in your head to Spanish, and then speak it. They have to hear that Spanish, translate it into English, and they could respond back to you in English while you're talking to them in Spanish. So he's like, think of the dynamic that's happening there. Think of all the nooks and crannies and the gears that are turning within both your heads just to have a simple conversation. and everybody was like, "Wow!" But his lessons were more receptive.
French is not easy to learn.
It's not. But his lessons were more receptive because of the way he taught, his style. He had a lot of fun. I had a math teacher that right now, if the dude taught the way he taught, was he math? I think he was math. He was a dirty motherfucker, but funny. It's like comedians. They could be such the raunchiest, dirtiest,
normal people,
bastards. But if they're
people.
funny,
Sure,
they can get away with it.
Now, your French teacher, how long was that? A year or a semester?
This high school is a semester.
So imagine you would have had him for much longer. You only had him for months, 3-4 months. I'm sure some people could learn French in 4 months. I guess if you're going to France and you have to, you freaking learn it in 4 months. There's no reason for you to learn French. But imagine you had him for a year or two.
No, if that was an elective in college, and I had him as a teacher, I would have stuck with it. I would have stuck with it, and I would have probably been having fucking summers in France and trying to learn the language and going fucking balls out.
Funny, you mentioned something earlier that I wanted to touch on, which is very interesting, which is something we experienced, and I know that all parents experience, and it's that you already homeschool your kids. And so, and honestly, even if your kids go to school, everybody should be homeschooling their kids. And what does that mean? That means that although they went to school that day, whatever, 9 to 3 or whatever, they come home, you still, like you said earlier, reinforce whatever they had learned via homework, but it doesn't have to be homework, by the way, via homework, because that's how you have mentioned it. And that's frustrating too, because you come from work.
Yeah.
Your wife comes from work. You guys are now decompressing from work. Then there's food, what we're going to eat. And whatever else is thrown on top of us.
Getting the baby from daycare.
On a daily, that travel, all that. And then you're tired.
Oh, yeah.
And then your kids have questions about math, reading, writing, a story, an essay. Oh, my God. It's hard. It's hard to do. But what we found is that before my son went to homeschool, we were I don't know what I'm saying, detangling everything he had learned that day at school, and kind of being like, okay, so this is what they meant, or this is how you should take this. And we cared a lot about his education, so we had the patience to do it, both of us. And so we were essentially homeschooling him before we decided to pull him out of school,
right?
Because we care about his education, and we didn't feel that what he was learning in school was enough.
Right.
Again, not to blame the system, but it's impossible for them to have efficiently teach him in 6 hours and have it stick.
Right.
That's why they pound it in your head over and over and over again. Then they make you fucking do homework. Then they fucking quiz you. And then they fucking test you. Then they RCT your ass. And then they SAT your ass.
Yeah.
Over and over again about the same goddamn thing. You feel me? When you come home, I mean, you have 3 children, man, and at least 2 of them are in school. It's not easy, but we want them to be better than us and be smart and
oh yeah,
you know. But I'm glad that you mentioned that, because it's something that even if you don't have the ability to do, because you have a 9 to 5 or whatever's holding you back, or that it's all about time. If you don't have the time, then you could still be curating their stuff from home after. And my kids don't really differentiate. I don't know how to say this word. I'm horrible with
differentiate.
Put that, when you edit, take that word and put it over mine. It'll be hilarious. But what a weekend is versus a weekday. And, we've been conditioned to look forward to weekends because we're going through this grind of Monday through Friday in school. And then when we become adults, it then transfers over to work, where work is from Monday to Friday, and then we look forward to that weekend. So my kids don't have that notion. And that's great that they don't have that notion. So for them, there is no looking forward to Saturday or Friday. We always look forward to Friday, right? Look forward to Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, because they're always learning, and there's always something that they're engaging in.
Right.
Something unique and interesting that they're engaging in. And so there isn't that anxiety that either Friday is coming or Sunday is ending.
Yeah.
There isn't none of that stuff. You can curate for your child anything and anywhere at any time you want them to learn. You could take a kid to a birthday party.
Yeah.
And if you could teach them one thing at that birthday party, You've done a great job.
I always subscribe to what you said was basically like it's always a learning thing. Like you don't have a set schedule to homeschool them. Everything is a learning and teachable moment.
Yes.
And I always subscribe to that but it's always, where do you have them? Is it conducive to their intelligence? Because when we started in the charter school in the Bronx that they went to, right now when we took them out, it was falling off. I was so close to one of the staff there that I would ask him like how are things, and he'll look at me. He just give me this face. I'm like, I get it. And they knew we moved, and I said, look, we're looking to pull him out pretty soon, and he's like, yeah, good idea. And I wish I could say his name because I think he's still there, and I don't want to get him in trouble. But when we started there, it was amazing. And
The charter school in the Bronx. Right.
South Bronx Classical.
Okay. Brand new when the school was brand new when you had.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Same thing with ours.
When we started, because it was my firstborn, we spoke to the one of the head guys there. His name was Mr. Will Wallace. Amazing dude. He left after a couple of years, but when we were considering putting him in there, and he had a good chance of getting in there, I basically choked up describing to him. I said, look, he's a smart kid. I love him, as all parents do love their children, more than not. But explaining to him, like, I want the best for him. His actions, his growing and learning and everything showed us he's a smart individual, and we wanted to foster that.
Sure.
And I'm telling him this. He's looking me dead in my eye, and I'm just like choking up. And he's like, Miss Luna, I get it. We're gonna do the best we can for him. This is a great school. At that time, I don't know what it is now, but it was that way for a couple of years. The school on the DOE rating scale from 1 to 10 was like a 2 to 3.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that charter school at that time, when we got our son into it for pre-K, I believe, was a 9 to 10. And they really did it. But after a while, with people leaving, certain things, I'm not too familiar with the politics, but to us, firsthand, looking at it, it started declining. And luckily, we were able to get our children into a very good school up here.
Sure. In
Yonkers. They're doing well. And one thing I wanted to mention, when you're talking to other, like you would talk to the parents, or what you talk as a parent talking to the teachers, and you want the best for your children, and some parents just would just say, just go, whatever. I would sit and talk to the teachers, and it was to the point of, if this child is learning and excelling in a certain spot, but they have to learn all of these things broadly, that's just it does a disservice. And that's one of the questions that I always ask the teachers. I said, you have a smart individual here.
Yeah.
If he's excelling, do you recognize that? And do you foster it? And they would look at me like, okay, he's that dude. I said, I'm not playing. He's a smart kid. A lot, parents, they'll be like, oh my God, he's the most wonderful kid, but he's a fucking monster. Oh my God, he's amazing, but he's lazy. He's an athlete. Yeah, he runs around the house. That's not the same. And all that type of stuff. And it's the reality that not a parent would admit, but it happens. It is the way it is. He's a smart individual. There's other things that he needs to bring it up on. But that, as a parent, that's my business.
Right.
With his intelligence, and he's in that school, I asked him, if you see him doing amazingly, if you see him beyond his reading capabilities, do you foster that? She's like, do you want me to? I said, absolutely. And he got one of the teachers that a lot of students don't like, and only because she's very hard nosed. She has a lot of boys. She told us she shot straight from her lips, and says, I don't play around. I give a lot of work. If I know that they can handle it, I'll give them even more.
Got it.
And I said, he can handle it, and we'll work with you. We just need a little give and take.
Okay.
And she understood that. And it was it was mid semester, it was mid school year, so they had that adjustment period. They weren't really doing too well, but once they got to it, they really got to it. And my 8-year-old Max, he same thing. You know, he's the fucking little firecracker. So of course you get those calls, this and that. Well, the one thing that surprised us was, you know, like you saw the artwork that he did for my wife that we have on the wall. He's the artist. You know, he's the dancer, which we got to get him back into. But he's just like my wife, and same thing with Dominican forcefulness. Oof, my God, the force of nature he can become.
Wow.
And what surprised us was he was giving lip to his art teacher. Like, what the hell's the matter with you?
Okay.
You love art. Why would you disrespect the art teacher? I don't know. All right. Okay.
Well, maybe there's more to it than that, right?
No, we got the details.
Okay.
We settled it, and you know he's testing the waters as all kids would.
There you go.
As all kids would. We're not blind to that. You know, now things are all good. Yeah, it's one thing that we reinforce in the teachers, and we make ourselves known.
Yeah.
RG and that we make ourselves known when it's their teachers. Like, yeah, we're right here. We're right here. Here's our numbers. You know, here's all our information.
Right.
Anything happens, you let us know. We're not. This isn't state-sponsored daycare. We don't treat it like that.
Right.
And
many people do.
That which is very, which is very sad.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't. It's regardless of how tired you should be. If you care enough that nothing should happen to them in a bad way physically, if a lot of people would have the opportunity to do that for them in an educational sense, it would be a little bit better. But I get that people have their own situations. That's not, I don't ignore that.
Right. Something you said reminded me of one of the tipping points you had access earlier of ultimately homeschooling my son.
Right.
And one of them was that we had put him in a charter school in East Harlem. And I think the school was called East Harlem Academy. I don't know if they're still around, but they were brand new. So when he was the inaugural class of that school, he only did 1 year there, and that's when we pulled him out. I believe it was third or fourth grade. Most likely third grade. My son never had any issues in school, in any capacity.
Right.
But what worried me about that particular school was how the other kids were doing.
Right.
And that was my issue. And I would bring it up to the faculty there, and they would either ignore me or push back a little.
Yeah.
They weren't too receptive of help. And maybe I was a little bit too arrogant in my approach. Or, I don't know, I could come off a certain way sometimes. But I also like to believe that it doesn't matter what or how the fuck I said it.
Yeah.
Fucking take it and do something with this shit and get it done, you know. So there was just a lot of stuff. And look, maybe it was growing pains for the charter school, right? Whatever. But at the end of the day, it's our son and it's his environment, and we are very territorial. We happen to be very territorial parents.
Yeah.
And by territorial, I mean his mind, right? There's stuff that can happen in the mind that is very difficult to get out, right?
Yeah.
And so it could be anything from being touched in school. And you don't remember that until you're 35.
Yeah.
That's when recessed memory comes. Oh, shit, I was touched. Didn't even realize. I have to act. I don't believe I've ever been touched, but I have to ask myself, Claudio, everybody has been touched. Have you ever been touched, Claudio? Think. Go back to school. Maybe there was a teacher that maybe you thought this is normal and it wasn't. And think. And, you know, I don't have that recessed memory. And it's stuff like that we're very territorial about strangers being around our kids.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate because we don't live in a village. It's
Yeah.
not a village. And, you know, so there was a lot of stuff with that school, and and that school represented all schools for us. At the end of the day, you have young adults who are teaching your kids, who have their own lives, have their own insecurities, have their own issues, have their own vices, and then they come to school and teach your kids however they're going to teach your kids,
Right.
however they feel that day. You know, they're going to teach. In this case, they didn't have 30 kids like when me and you were younger.
Yeah.
But it's probably between 15 and 20, which is still a lot of kids to fucking deal with.
It's a lot of personalities.
Yeah, man. A lot of stuff. You got the genius, and then you got the guy who's lagging behind, or the girl who's lagging behind, right? So you have the whole dynamic in there, and the teacher has to deal with that. It's a challenge, like you said. So it was us watching the faculty deal with this ethnic school, which consisted of probably 99% black and Hispanic kids. And guess what, Oscar? The Spanish teacher was white.
Mm-hmm.
The principal was Cuban. My son's teacher was white. The assistant was white. They're from Boston and shit. Some of these people are from Boston. And then you come into East Harlem. You don't know what the fuck you're dealing with. And guess what? And these are some of the things that I told the faculty in a letter and in person. You guys aren't dealing with these kids. You're dealing with their parents.
Yeah.
It ain't the kids you're dealing with. Kids are easy.
Yeah.
You tell them to do something, they do it. You teach them something, you teach them correctly, they do it. You want to mold them, you mold them. You want to clay, they're clay.
Yeah.
Whatever you want. They're super easy. You can teach them to be very bad. You can teach them to be very good. Whatever you want. This is the impressionable state of their life.
Yeah.
And, I remember I did a video one day for the school. I volunteered myself. They had a play, and I showed up with my professional camera, and I did a beautiful video, and I sent it to the... And I remember looking at that video and going, these kids are so beautiful. Every single one of them. Mm-hmm. But I also looked at that video and said, most of these kids are going to end up damaged. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But they're so beautiful right now because they're innocent. They're untouched. They haven't been hurt. But it's going to happen. And it probably has happened already, right? They're all about my son's age now, 17. So, and it's this faculty's responsibility to train the parents. Find a way to manifest that, to deal with the parents. You're in an urban ethnic area. You're in the hood. You're from Boston. You don't know shit about this. We could tell by the way you talk. You can tell by the way you interact with me. And I was probably the most articulate parent, and I could have been their biggest help, but they were too insecure to allow me to help them because they think that, it's going to look bad on them if a parent knows more than they do about what the fuck they're doing, which I did.
So there was no olive branch of trying to understand the dynamic of, okay, with like how you said, some of the parents, it would take them a while to, they're not as dynamic as we would like them to be, but everybody can adjust, which is fine. Sure. But there has to be an effort on both sides.
Yeah.
And that's very hard, especially when someone doesn't like, oh, I just want to deal with your kids. Yeah. Like, don't talk to me that way. But like, oh, you got a lot to learn about dealing with, the parent of a kid, and you just want to deal with the kid. It doesn't work that way.
Hey, let me bring up one more point to add on to that. We made it a point to attend every single field trip that the school had. Mm-hmm. Either one or both of us would be present during the field trip. So we would never let our son go on a field trip with his school if we weren't there.
Right.
And we've been to like 4 or 5 field trips. So I'm going to tell you one example, but this goes for all of them. So we would go to the Museum of Natural History, which I so happen to have been a member of. I self-educate myself since I dropped out of college. I love any kind of education, learning, history. I learned how to learn after college.
Right.
I didn't know how to learn before college or even all the way before my whole life. I learned how to learn after college. So I had made myself a member of the Museum of Natural History. In fact, we went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which I wasn't a member of. I was a member of the Museum of Natural History, but I also visited the Metropolitan Museum often, and I would go by myself and learn blah, blah, blah. So they got the right fucking parent to walk in that place with the fucking kids. But guess what happened, Oscar, when we went to this trip? The teachers did nothing. They're just walking around with the kids, letting them see shit. There's never this stop here. The significance of this thing historically, what is this, what is that, what is this? The Metropolitan Museum has a bunch of stuff. And for those who don't know, the Metropolitan Museum of Art is in Manhattan, down there somewhere in Manhattan, 5th Avenue.
Google it.
Yeah, in the 50s somewhere.
They could Google it.
But so me and my wife, and specifically me, would take it upon myself to stop the class and go, bam, let's learn about this right here. And we took the fucking field trip over, and the teachers let us do it too.
They probably loved it.
That's crazy. They let me do that shit. They took us to the botanical garden. The botanical gardens are incredible. These fucking teachers are just taking the kids and I'm like, yo, pause. This fucking tree right here was here when the Native Americans were here. Yeah. Chillax. Like, this tree right here. Let's get this, put things into perspective. Yeah. Right. Okay? So it's stuff like that, you know. Circling back to the beginning when you had asked me some of these tipping points, these is stuff like this, or we're like, yeah, we weren't insecure about our kids and the teachers imposing themselves on our kids because we will homeschool them when they would get home anyway.
Yeah.
But we were like, yeah, we just need to not be in that system and get the fuck out of there. That shit is whack for us. We out of here. That was something that, you know, that was it. We were like, yeah, we're done. I wrote them like probably 2 letters in that year, and they didn't want to hear it. You know, maybe I was a little bit overbearing for them.
Now, for the kids, in your opinion, does this reduce the chance of them making more friends, and does it bother them, or is it even a factor?
It's a factor, and I'm learning it now.
Okay.
It does reduce it.
Right.
So it is a parent's responsibility to introduce that factor for their children. There's nothing like school as a social forum. There's no place like school that serves as a social forum. We're talking about all types of kids with all types of experiences, multiple races, multiple stories. It's great and it's bad. Where does your child fall in? Are they the bullied?
Yeah.
Are they the bully? Are they in the middle? Are they the cool kid? Are they not the cool kid? It's not something that I factored into my decision. But now that my son is older, I'm not saying that I wouldn't have homeschooled him. But again, like I said earlier, I probably would have put him in high school for the hell of it a little bit earlier than this last final year that we're going to potentially try and do. At least 2-3 years, and just for the hell of it. Like, whatever. But now I justify it because they have cousins and so on and so forth. The great thing about living in the Bronx, we live in Connecticut now, New Haven, Connecticut, so we don't know anybody up there.
Right.
And I'm also not as comfortable up there as I was in the Bronx when I lived in the Bronx. I you know, I was telling my wife the other day, I do so well in like the hood. Like, I'm never afraid.
I get it. It's comfortable.
Yeah. You know, I know my way around the hood. You know, my wife is, you know, obviously women are going to feel differently about the hood because it's a dangerous place. And for me, I'm like, I don't consider it dangerous. I mean, we're talking about, I played basketball in the hood my whole life. These are places where you're going to find problems with guys, not kids, guys. You know, you could get violence and stuff like that, and you don't know your way around, know how to talk to people, know how to get yourself out of trouble. I've done that my entire life. So the hood for me, you know, as long as you're not banging the drug dealer's girlfriend or fucking with his money, you're not gonna get shot at, or or don't stand next to the guy who's gonna get shot at. Exactly. It's unfortunate. It's a joke that I make, but hey, you don't want to get shot in the hood. These are the things you don't do. So for me, it's like I'm not that type of guy anyway. I'm not hanging out with the drug dealers. I mean, I played basketball with them, but I wasn't hanging with them. Whatever.
One thing I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's funny with what you say about that. And what I'm starting to teach my kids now, and I don't know if you teach your oldest, is even like I work for the city, and we have an autistic gentleman that works with us. I would talk to him, let him know, like, he would get frustrated because the social issues that he has and dealing with the people that work there.
Sure.
And it's a different dynamic. I'm not going to get too in the weeds to it, but one of the times I was talking to him, I actually told him multiple times. And I told him, I said, and what I'm telling my kids too is, read the temperature of the room.
Yes.
And it's like he looks at me, and I will go into detail with him about it and everything, and I'll tell my kids, and I tell them, it was like, just simple as fuck is just read the temperature in the room.
Yes.
Not that. Look at this, and just to cover bed, not the actual fucking temperature.
Sure.
Just,
understood.
You know, for the kids, you know, for my youngest, and I tell them, let's just see who you're dealing with.
Yes.
You know, understand the
life
cues.
That's life or death.
Exactly. Yeah. It's you walk into something.
Yes.
It don't smell right.
You're doing it right, Oscar.
You know, either keep your mouth shut, remove yourself from the situation, or whatever, and just end with just, guys, read the temperature of the room. It matters.
And we learned that somehow, and it got me out of a lot of situations.
Me too.
And the reason why I brought up the hood and my comfortability in it was because when we first pulled out my son from school, I was in the hood playing basketball and interacting with the guys from the neighborhood on a daily basis. So I would go downstairs. I had a routine where the kids would wake up, you know, I would give some work for my son to do. I would do my photography work on my computer. I was learning photography at the time, and then around 5 o'clock, I would go downstairs and play basketball because that's when all the guys would come home from work, and then I would play basketball for like 3 hours.
Right.
And what that meant that all their kids were in the playground, and so he got a lot of early socialization during that time.
Right.
Unfortunately, we lost that when we moved to New Haven in Connecticut, and so that was my justification right there. It's like, yo, but I got the playground downstairs, and all we had to do was come downstairs, go to the corner, go down further, and the playground was right there. The basketball, there was trouble there, which is what I liked. Observe, like you said, feel the temperature. Observe what's happening, get ahead of it, be preemptive, see, be ahead of the curve, so that way you could witness something, learn from it, but not be the situation.
Yeah.
You understand?
Get caught
So
up in it, all that.
they never did get caught up in some bullshit. There's always, the great things that were happening was that a kid would take their toy and then he would have to go get it back. And these are the things that school is great for, is that they get to see where they are in that hierarchy.
Yeah.
Where do you lie? Are you the kid to go get your shit back? Are you the one to cry to dad? Are you the one to be scared and then muster up the strength and then go do it? Who are you? And then those things there, that's where you get to learn that about yourself. And there are instances, there are stories that I have where you get to see their character, but we haven't had that for a while because of where we live now.
Right.
So we were lucky to have had that, and the hood helped me with that, because the same kids that they would have went to school with were the same kids that were down there in the playground, and they were having very similar interactions with these kids. And that's what you want. You just want to see where they lay in society. Like, who are you? Who are you? And so, they don't ask me, do my kids have friends? They don't have any friends. they don't have any friends right now.
Okay.
They have cousins. They communicate in multiple facets. We go visit cousins. They talk to them on Discord or via text and so on and so forth. And that's one of the reasons why we're going to put our 17-year-old in his last year of high school, just so he could get in there and just get in there with a bunch of kids. And when I just had this conversation with my brother not too long ago, because I went to visit him. He lives up in Ithaca. Him and his wife, they put some things into perspective. Now, granted, we are always thinking about my son and his interaction with other people, but I hadn't thought about it in a while. And so I was like, yeah, you know what? This kid is about to be 18, and we're high school. A good year of high school would be good for him.
Yeah.
And again, there goes the dynamics of homeschooling. There are no rules. It's whatever tools you have, you use them. And in our case, a year of high school is a tool for us in our homeschooling curriculum.
Maybe
How funny.
Maybe you could blow his mind and say, look, we're going to do a Rumspringer for you.
A what?
You never heard of that?
What is that?
A Rumspringer? You never heard of that?
Rumspringer.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that hard with the
What is that?
with the syllable. It's where the Amish let their kids. I don't know if it's their kids or when they're teenagers. I believe, I'm not too sure, it's for like maybe a year or a certain period of time. They can go out into the world, experience as the world as it is outside of their environment.
And that's important for them.
Yeah.
They get to appreciate what they got back at home.
Maybe.
Or
I'm not too sure. I'm not well versed to it. I just know
Okay.
is that they give them some time. It's a sort of coming to America, sowing
so
your
great.
your royal oats type
That
of
is
deal.
so great.
They would let them go for a while out
Got
into
it.
the world, experience everything. But when you come back, it's back to that horse and buggy.
Interesting.
I believe so. And
That exposure is good. That contrast.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, you see what they're dealing with, but then you come back to the simple life. I don't know what all types of facets of how they want to teach them doing that.
Interesting.
So, but it was interesting at the time when I was learning. I was
Got
like,
it.
oh wow, they just let them go, and then they eventually come back.
You ever heard of a show called The Alaska, The Last Frontier? Discovery Channel. I love this
Probably.
show. So real quick to point out something that you had just said, which proves to me that this is something that happens in societies and means if it also validates what I'm doing, which is great, makes me feel good. In America's Last Frontier is about a family who live on a homestead in Alaska, and they've been there for generations.
Yeah.
And they've been raising their kids and grandkids and great-grandkids, and their great-grandkids are like 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
There's like all these generations all living on this homestead where they build a home here. That family's there. They live in this nice little village, and they're all self-sustainable. They can go to town and get the stuff that they need. And what you learn when you're watching the show, I mean, there's probably like 11 or 12 seasons of the show. I love this show. And it's in Alaska. But exactly what you just said they do, where they would send their kids away from the homestead to go to the States to experience that life. And most of the time, you'll see, oh, this kid, he's coming back from the States, the lower.
It's a little too much for me. I gotta come back.
Yeah. But nonetheless, it must be a great experience. You have a taste of both.
Yeah.
You know, but the great thing is that they end up coming back home and wanting to be home and contributing to the homestead. And like you said, so you know, it's like it can go either way. Hey, you could want to stay. By the way, Jewel, you know the singer Jewel?
Yeah.
That's her family.
I think I saw her in an interview.
That's her family. And she was the child who didn't come back.
She was on I think Joe Rogan's podcast, and I caught that one, and she was talking about that. Yes. She would talk about her family, and that they were so it was a great upbringing because it was very intimate in sort of a way.
Yes.
And so
yes, so that's her family, but I didn't know that until like season fucking 9. So it's not about her.
Yeah.
You just later learn that her fucking this is Jules' family.
Yeah.
And you know, she still lives in the lower 48, and she is an American, and she's a musician. She's in the industry, and she brings her child back to the homestead to experience her. But she remained. You understand? Like she made that decision. She became a successful musician, but she remained. She comes back to visit, but she didn't come back for good. So it works either way. Like, hey, you decide you got to taste the homestead, but so it's great that you brought that up.
Because she said she lived with her father. Yeah, I kind of remember this because it was a pretty good episode that she got into it. How she lived with her father. She dealt with the stuff with her mother.
Yeah.
But she was really focused on that. It was an amazing life to live.
Yeah,
but
you gotta fish, you gotta hunt. It's beautiful. It's my dream.
Get your own water by the river.
Oh yeah. It's my dream to live like that. It's interesting that you had mentioned the way that the Amish do it, and then I want to do it with my son in this very small way. But now that I know that this is like a thing, maybe I'll fucking extend it. Like, you know, hey, go out there, go to the world, and come back.
It's a good learning experience. Actually, he could then start learning about the Amish and what they do, make comparisons. Hey, buddy,
okay, yes.
Now you got to make an essay, compare and contrast, buddy.
I guess.
Make it happen.
Yes. I haven't had my son do an essay yet. I don't think that will ever come into that torture.
You always got to throw those curveballs.
Fucking torture of writing a fucking essay. But yeah, the socializing aspect, I'm still getting grips with it because now I'm dealing with a 17-year-old, like I said earlier. So we're gonna adapt, and we're gonna put him in school, and we actually want to put him in something this summer. It's last minute, so we have to fucking like scramble and find something to put him in. But he's 17; it's tougher to get the older kids in something.
Yeah.
But you know, me and my wife are not perfect. We don't know everything. We're not like the fucking homeschool specialists. I wouldn't dare to teach a group of people how to homeschool their kids. That'd be kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
We know how our kids are. We know how we are. It's all a personality based thing, right? You know, we're still learning. I feel it's worth it to us in the long run. We'll know later when our kids are older. We don't know. It's my first time with a fucking 17-year-old.
I mean, now that because you're bringing with the 17-year-old, my next question is the dating aspect of it. He doesn't have the exposure. Doesn't have the availability of giving that a chance and seeing where that goes. I mean, has he been just testing the waters on the street and or other means online or whatever? I mean, what has he expressed anything regarding that, or have you seen him making moves and I see what you're doing?
No, because you learn game in school or
for the most part,
or in the hood.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have any game. I never had game. Now, I'm
there with you, man.
I was relatively a popular guy with the girls. Like I didn't thirsty because I had women's attention for most of my life, even when I was young. So I can't come from the perspective of somebody who didn't have the exposure. I was never the type who had to go and chase a woman. Never. And so. Okay, so I don't have any game. I didn't learn any game. I don't think my son has any game. To pick up a girl in the streets, you need to have fucking game. You understand? You got 3 seconds.
Those cold calls, yeah.
Okay, you have 3 seconds to impress this woman. Okay, I don't have any game. I never even tried that shit. You my experience was, if I get you for an hour, you decide whether you like me or not. I'm funny. I got personality. When it comes to him, obviously that catching girls on the street is not going to be a thing, most likely.
He's 17.
He's 17, but he's also
Yeah.
relatively quiet. He's
Yeah.
pretty quiet. He is expressive, but he is quiet. Now, Oscar, this begs the question now. You asked me this. So he's 17. The women in my life, my wife, my sister-in-law, and other women, put things into perspective to me. They go, Oscar, I was attracted to Madonna when I was 7 years old.
Really?
Is that normal? I don't know. She's gorgeous. I thought she was gorgeous when I was 7. Is it the culture of hip hop, or I don't think I was into hip hop at 7. Is it the Dominican in me? Is it the hood in me that I was already like? Maybe it wasn't 7. Okay, maybe I don't. Okay, if it was the video with Madonna, there's a little boy. He's like watching her through the fucking, like, she's like a stripper, and it keeps revealing her, and she's like, I don't remember the song, but she was so sexy in that damn thing, and I remember being aroused super early, right? Now, was that taught to me? Is that normal? The women in my life go, look, there is some of these kids it's way too early for them.
True.
Okay, so I don't know what the right age is because I'm from the hood. I've always been into girls, and it's always been a thing for me. But
things can happen earlier. It can be you could be in a
right,
sort of pressure cooker or something that just goes too fast.
But
And
now here's the interesting part about me. So I was a virgin all the way to 21. By the time I was 21, my peers, 14, 13, losing their virginity. I had zero interest in losing my virginity throughout the entire epic.
right.
So even though I had access to women, I wasn't indulging in and I wasn't insecure, and I wasn't scared.
Okay.
It's a difference, right? And so, believe it or not, the woman I'm with today, she's my first. My wife is my first.
Well,
Okay, because I'm a person of control. I'm a person of discipline. So I knew what I wanted when I wanted it. I know what I don't want. I saw other people indulging, and I didn't want to indulge the way they did. That's why I say it's interesting that you brought that up, because where is the right time? But to answer your question, I've had the conversation with my son already. I have to learn about his orientation.
yeah.
You know, how do you feel when, and I've had this conversation, you know, and it's an ongoing conversation because, you know, you have to make your child comfortable with him telling you
Yeah.
what he feels. Are you gay? Are you straight? How do you feel when you see a pretty woman?
Yeah.
You know, so this is an evolving thing. It happens every now and then. It could be as simple as, if I see a girl look at Claudio, I might tell him, did you see her looking at you? You know, I haven't seen it yet because we're not exposed. We're not in the hood. If my son walks through the hood, there's going to be girls looking at him.
Yeah.
We don't live there. So there's less accessibility to that information, to that data. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know, you know, because I was also very uncharacteristic in that way. You know, while all the guys were indulging at my age, I was sitting back going, yeah, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. You're fucking whack. You're corny. I don't give a fuck if you're pretty. Your fucking conversation is whack. Your IQ is low. And of course, all these women are gorgeous, but you're stupid. I hate to say it that way, but that was how I...
Now, just to be fair, the same way it goes both ways.
Sure.
I feel.
Oh,
It
yeah,
goes
yeah.
both ways.
But it's rare when
Same
it's a
thing
guy.
yeah.
When it's from a guy to women. Because we are possessed by one thing, which is...
Yeah.
You know, we're not looking inside of the women usually.
But the guys get called out for those things. Like,
Yes.
I've had tons of female friends in the past,
Sure.
and they would basically say the same thing. Like, if your game ain't tight but you look good, keep your mouth shut. Because you open your mouth,
Sure.
you dead everything, and it's like, good night.
Well, vice
See ya.
versa. A girl could be dumb and we still want them.
Well, yeah, but guys are.
You know what we're
guys
driven
are,
by.
we're simply complicated.
Yeah.
You know, the simplest shit to be like, hey, you know, I hear some of my idiot friends when I was younger. It's like, huh?
I'll hit that.
I got a heartbeat.
I'll hit exactly. I'll hit that.
I had
that.
one friend he's like, oh, I'll hit something, but I'll never tell you guys about it because I know you make fun of me. It's like, that's not really.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I knew better than to partake in such thing because it would have ruined my life. I probably would have had a fucking kid at 16. Blah blah blah. You know the story.
Yeah.
Okay, It's work in progress with my son. He's right at that age. He's right there. There has to be an evolving conversation between me and him to kind of fill him out. He has to become. We have to give him the avenue and the ability to say, hey, Dad, listen, I want to go to the mall. I want to go do this. And he is getting to that point. He wants to be around kids. To answer your question, I think that once I put him in some kind of situation, whether it's school
Right.
or something this summer, it's going to naturally happen.
Yeah.
He's going to gravitate towards a girl, or the girl will gravitate towards him.
Have you guys tried that, or look into those volunteering organizations? I don't know, there's the dudes with the red jackets or something like that.
I
But
don't know. I mean, we're so. We don't know. We don't know where to start, but we started looking already. So unfortunately, it's super late in the game for this summer because like all the registrations happen in May and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll find something for him. We're gonna find something for him. But if not, at least we'll put him in school. And there's gonna be girls who are attracted to him. They're gonna be attracted to his swag. You know why? Because he's quiet. He's to himself. He's confident. Women love that shit.
Oh, that's that. Let me
Yeah.
see. Let me see what's under the hood.
Yeah, that's how I
under
was.
His mental hood.
Yeah, that's how I was. A girl could twerk in front of me and I wouldn't blink. And then they, ooh, I like that. Ooh, I like that. He didn't go for that. Oh my God, every guy drools over me.
I got the. Oh, you're a good listener. I'm like, yeah, tell me more. Tell me more.
You know, if they're anything like me, at least if he's anything like me, then being chilled and swagged is going to work in his favor when it comes to women. That's what women like. They like you to be funny. Yes, I'm funny. He's funny. But they like you to be chilled and not be thirsty and shit. Because every guy is fucking thirsty.
Tell my kids, like, keep your composure.
Yeah.
But don't be too composed, you know.
Yeah, there's a good medium in there.
Exactly.
There's a good medium in there. So it's a tough one for me. Again, remember, it's my first time with a 17-year-old, first time homeschooling a 17-year-old. There's a lot of firsts in life. It's the first time I have 2 kids at this age. There's always a first. First time where I have a 17 and 11-year-old.
Trust me, stop at 2.
So so we're working on that, and I'm glad that you asked that question, though.
No, that's great. And with how everything was set up and how you guys got into it, and I know you said that there wasn't that much oversight, but let's say if the oversight was consistent as how it was formatted to be.
Sure.
Now, is it strictly handled by you and your wife to teach your kids? Are you allowed to have people pitch in? Is that something that is allowed in the handbook, if you read it, so to speak? Or whatever they given you to guide you through the beginnings of it? And did you have somebody help out?
I guess the answer for that is yes and no. It's not anything I've ever thought about. Again, it's another question that I appreciate you asking. Because what you learn is that homeschooling is simply an expression of something that has already existed, and it's a village. Unfortunately, we don't live in a village. There's a part of me, and I'm sure there's a part of my wife, who wish that we lived in a village format. What does that mean? That means you have different individuals with different experiences, different age groups in the village that all share common goals, right? And you learn from everybody. My son is mostly learning from me and my wife.
Right.
Where we live in this country, my brother is in another part of the state. My sister's in another part of the state. I'm grateful that my mom was able to help us take care of the kids very early on in their lives, both of them.
Right.
So that way they've had their experience with their grandmother. They know that she's special, that she's important, right? So yes, of course, I would love for other people to have partaken in their education. But first of all, because of where we live, the society, I don't trust anybody. I've curated my life, and I'm teaching them based on what I think is going to work out for our lives.
Yeah.
Because remember, while we're trying to unravel their life, I'm unraveling mine.
Yeah.
And my wife is unraveling hers. So we're growing and inexperienced in many aspects. And obviously my kids are naturally their kids. They will be better than us one day, and they will be smarter than us at our age. When we're 40, they'll be better when they're 40. They're going to be teaching us things.
Exactly.
Later
That's
on.
what we fight for.
Right. So I'm aware of that, and that's what we're preparing for. Yeah, I wish that it could be a communal thing. I wish that there was a family across the street who
Yeah.
who I could send my kids to, and because they are proficient in such a thing, that I can go over there and just interact with them.
Yeah.
It's not sit in the living room and look at a blackboard and have it. Just go be with the family and then come back to us. And
Right.
then tomorrow go to this family. And then tomorrow go to this, and go anywhere you want.
Yeah.
And then they make their rounds, and then they fucking come as like mixture of the village.
Right.
This notion, right? Something that we could assume has been around for thousands and thousands of years in human civilization. And we live in a society that's relatively new that makes us feel like this stuff is not relevant or is not around. Homeschooling is just us as we're doing a throwback
Yeah.
to what civilization has probably done for thousands of years, and I'm tapping into that, and my wife is tapping into that, and that's all it is. That's how I feel.
Right.
And I think I live in a philosophy that most of the things that I do, most of the things that I subscribe to, are things that tap into our ancient civilization.
Right.
And my instincts tell me that this is in my blood, and so homeschooling is that.
Okay.
It ultimately is that. And I wish that we did have a village, and we don't. So I can't send my kid across the street or to my next door neighbors without feeling that something bad is going to happen to them. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Now, you touched on how you're going with learning how he's being socially.
Yeah.
Now, if you notice any social awkwardness, how do you and your wife mitigate that? If at all, it might not be there yet. I mean, he's only 17.
Sure, exactly.
And the other one's 11, so...
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking, have I seen any of that? See, it's hard for me because I'm so close to it. My son is my son. He's normal to me. And I don't think... And I think that he fits well in society. That you want your kids to fit in well society. You don't want them to be outside of society. So you want them to be exposed to many things.
Right.
If I did see something that was concerning, how would I deal with it, or how would we deal with it? First of all, we would deal with it like a team, me and my wife together.
Right.
There's nothing more powerful than me and my wife's brain combined. Nothing. I have no match to both those brains put together, and neither does she. So together, we could figure anything out. She has a woman's perspective. I have a man's perspective. I have my experience perspective. She has her experience. I have my American perspective. She has her Haitian. Because I am Dominican, but I was born here. Right. So a lot of me is American, and I know how this system works, how this structure works.
Right.
She's Haitian, and she came when she was 11, so she has a different perspective on America and how it works, and so on and so forth. And I love her for that. But I also appreciate that I'm American, and I know what the fuck America's all about and how the beast works, and I ride this fucking bull, and I know how the fuck this bitch works. So we work together great. We would just, I guess talking to him, it sounds typical, but talking to him. Also, maybe just even an organic process. There's something about an adaptation that leads to an evolution that's gradual.
Yeah.
That's not like, oh shit, I saw something, let me run and take care of this right away. You see something, and it might be the beginning or the surface or the head of something, and then you go, okay, I'm aware of it, so the way that I think and the way we maneuver is going to eventually just take care of that problem.
Right.
Instead of me going and directly at it, I just go, okay, I saw it. That's all I needed. My adaptation will lead to my evolution, will lead to the gradual solution to that situation.
It's always good to have a game plan.
Yeah.
It'll help solve a lot of problems, and I believe that, okay, people have their first reactions to something, and it might not be the right reaction to a situation.
Right.
And if you're aware, then you do that. You definitely, look, take a step back. You don't have to go head first into everything.
No.
You solve a problem by, like how you said, you analyze it, formulate it, and deal with it.
You ever tried and feed a squirrel, or watch somebody try and feed a squirrel?
I guess it could get kind of, no pun intended, kind of squirrely.
Well, I always use the squirrel example because, if you we used to visit Central Park all the time. So when you see many people trying to feed squirrels.
Yeah.
And any general example, just feeding a squirrel. If you make any sudden moves when you're feeding a squirrel, the squirrel is gone, and they're fucking quick.
Yeah.
Right. Where if you are calm, you are patient, you wait, the squirrel, because the squirrels are very apprehensive. They're very, they're being hunted at all times by all kinds of things, and maybe even humans. Obviously, they don't want to be around us. So, you got to relax. So if I see a problem and you just run towards it, you kind of feel like it's just going to get worse. You were way too aggressive, and then it evolves into something worse.
Yeah.
And so I'm very careful about rushing something like that.
Right.
I deal with it like I would if I wanted to feed a squirrel. How would I do it? I would just be very calm about it and just kind of wait and be patient, and then I'll get what I want. So it's one of those situations. Sometimes in life it pays to be that patient, even though it could be a situation where some people would panic and go, "Oh my God, no! It has to be now! It has to be now! It has to be now! It has to be now!" And I'm not gonna lie. There's some things in my life where I have that sense of urgency, where I'm just like, "No! It has to be now! It has to be now! It has to be now!" But there's some things where you
can. I feel unnecessary urgency. It's the building blocks to anxiety.
Sure.
We're both chill to certain extents, and
when you say both, you mean you and your wife?
Yeah.
Okay.
But she has a sense of urgency on certain things. So do I. We also we inform each other that, hey, you're kind of getting a little bit out of hand, and is not conducive to them learning and being a problem solver.
Sure.
So we in a sense catch ourselves on that, like, hey, you can't freak out about certain things. She would about certain things, but we would catch ourselves, or we would check each other, and like, well, you can't be saying these type of things. You can't be doing this type of things. Can't be upset all the time, and but that type of thing comes with age.
Sure.
And it comes with, I feel it only comes with really, really, really being introspective about who you are and how yourself is coming across, and especially to your children, because like everybody knows, like you said, it's like they're sponges. They take in everything, whether you know it or not.
Sure.
And if you don't know it, then you're paying attention to the wrong thing.
Yeah.
On a more serious note,
sure.
Do you get slick and double the family vacations at school trips?
So we are a very untraditional family. So we haven't gone on vacation in a very long time.
Okay.
Ask me the question again.
Do you get slick and double the family vacations as school trips?
Yes. The answer is yes to that. Okay. So I get your question. I get it. The second time you said it, I understood it. Absolutely. And I have thought about this, and the reason and the way that it happens is that I want my kids to experience some of the ecstasy that I experienced in my freedom as a young person. So I can give you me and my kids go on what I call adventures.
Right.
Okay. And yes, they double as a school trip, but it's also a little bit of selfishness on my part.
Okay.
But I can say it's okay because they're learning. So I can give you a couple of examples where I've put my kids in danger, and that's important. And it's kind of weird, and leave it up to a father to be the one to do that.
True.
Okay. So I feel I try. I can't. There's no way I could fill the gaps that school can with socializing and kids and getting in trouble and getting into and out of trouble, so on and so forth. But in the summer, when the temperature is good, I do take my kids on adventures. They're having very different experiences than other kids are having in the summer and in general. But they are having an experience, and one that they'll always remember and will be a part of their building blocks for the rest of their lives. So they are having different experiences than the average kid. And some examples that I could give you is that, like I said, I put them in danger, in serious danger. I teach my kids how to ride bike and go down hills on some crazy shit. And the lesson there is, you have to There's a lot of lessons there. Be in control. Be aware of your environment. Survive. Don't die. It's a broad thing that I'm saying, but I am pounding this into them when we ride in the streets with cars. We ride towards traffic, not with it. Because that's how I rode bike when I was young. It's dangerous. And I put them through that. And there's a lot of situations. And my wife says, listen, don't do that stuff in front of me. And you could understand why. Because motherlies have a very different motherly instinct than fathers do. Yep. Okay, so I'm teaching my kids how to go out into the world and be prepared for anything. And to get hurt. And to survive. And to get up. You know, I'll tell you a quick story. We ride bike, and when we find hills, and we're in a city, so this is not like, look, at the bottom of this hill, there's cars, and there's traffic lights, and there's stop signs. Yep. Okay, there's cars going 40 miles an hour at the bottom of this hill, and I put my kids through that, knowing what was at the bottom of this hill. And guess what, Oscar? One of my kids fell, and this was just last summer, and he ditched the bike. Oof. Before he got to the intersection.
Because he knew what was going to happen if
And I told him that.
Yeah.
And I didn't teach him that by telling him to ditch his bike. He did something that I never taught him. How do you teach a kid to ditch a bike? How do you teach a kid how to fall off a bike? I never taught him that. What I did teach him is to have a presence of mind, to read the temperature, like you said, to be aware of everything. So all your instincts come at the same time and you make the right decision. An instinct that happened in a split second and gave you the best outcome. Yeah, you got a scrape. Yeah, you got shook up. But you're not dead. Yeah. And all your body parts work. And you took the best course of action. You ditched the bike at the right fucking time. Yeah. And I was so proud of him. I was like, Dad, I was like, Dante, you a fucking boss. You fucking, look at you. Yo, you fucking standing right here. You don't understand, Oscar. The hill, by the time I was the last, I always go last because I want to see them ahead of me. Midway through this hill, I was out of control. It was too steep. I was out of control. And I learned this. I don't know if you ever grew up riding bikes. When I was young, I used to steal bikes because I couldn't afford them. So me and my friend would steal bikes and rob bikes. Yeah. I never owned a bike that my mom purchased. We did, but when we were really young. After that, all my bikes were stolen. And you steal bikes that have fucked up brakes. I don't know how to fix brakes. I don't have money to take this to a mechanic. So you learn how to ride bikes in the hood with no fucking brakes. Yeah. And if you want to go to if you're in Washington Heights and you're in 165 and you want to go to 181st, you're going to have some fucking hills. And you want to go to 181st and you go. And it is what it is. And you fucking make it and you make it back and there's hills and you don't have brakes. Yeah. And it is and these brakes don't stop you from going or not going. And so these are the adventures that I went through in my life. And then during these field trips, this is what I teach them without indirectly. And again, so, I put them in these situations when it don't matter if the hill was so steep that the brakes didn't matter. That you could press them and still going. Mm-hmm. So if you've ever experienced that.
I have.
Okay. That's how steep the hill was. And so it was a lesson for everybody. Everybody made it. Everyone saw and experienced my youngest son flip off that fucking bike, miraculously get up from that accident and have nothing wrong with him. A motorist stopped in front of my son. I had dropped my phone midway through the hill because I have a mount for my phone, and the wind for this hill was so that my phone went flying. So I stopped midway. So while I'm doing this, my son has the accident at the bottom of the hill. A motorist pulls aside and goes, "That's what you fucking get." That in itself is a lesson. And I'm I'm glad that happened to you. Now you know that how people are. Everything is a lesson. Everything is an education. Everything is homeschooling. Now you know what's up. Don't rely on anybody else. You get the fuck up. You get the fuck off. If that brake was broken, you walking home. Yeah. Ain't no cab coming. Ain't no bus coming. Nigga, you walking home with this fucking bike.
There was no Metro cards for us. We had to.
You walking home. Yeah. Okay, so those are the kind of trips that my kids go on. We go through hiking, And I put them in situations where we were climbing on these parked trains, and then we get off the fucking train, and then the train moved, and we're like, "Fuck, what the fuck?" Shit like that. Like I'm an adventurer. I've always been an adventurer. So these are the situations that I put my kids. My kids are adventurers. They know how to. And I got 2 boys. I don't have any girls. Maybe it'd be different if I had a girl.
Right.
You know, do I want my girl to fucking fall down a hill? I don't. Do I want my son to scrape his fucking elbows? Yes. Do I want him to bleed from his knees? Yes. Do I want my daughter to bleed from her knees? I don't know. I don't have a daughter, but I don't think I would want my daughter to bleed from her knees. I want my kids to bleed from their knees. I want them to get hurt and get up without me being there, without my help. So these are the adventures that we go on a summerly basis, and we do this often. We swim out there in Connecticut where there are no lifeguards. We swim where nobody's gonna come save you. I'll try and save you, but I can barely swim, and we're learning how to swim.
Yeah.
So these are the situations I put them in. Hey, this is life. It's life. There is no handrails here. There is no safety here. I'm here for you, and you could, but we need to go through this. Like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm gonna go down this fucking hill, and I could kill myself.
Yeah.
And
You gotta try and instill that resilience.
yes,
Whether it's there or not.
yeah.
I mean, if it's there, you have to show them this is how you use it and maintain it.
Yeah.
Or, like, look, you gotta learn. Cause
I there's nothing like growing up in the hood, Oscar, and I don't think my kids are gonna be as resilient as I am because I'm from
feel
the
you.
hood.
I'm South Bronx, born and raised. I know
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean, and you know, moving to where I'm at now. I mean, you see how it is. You saw it. You know, they're here to have what I had to make me what I am. It might not happen, but I want them to have it in their own way, and however way there is, then I'll do my best to foster it. But no, would I wanted them to live that type of life? Not really.
No.
Because
But if only you could only show them the tough parts without the torture, without the,
are
all
you
the
gonna survive type of thing.
Right,
Like
that.
my friends one night, running around fucking Southern Boulevard, and I forgot what we was it was a summer night, and
Go ahead.
shit, we were walking through. Something was happening on the boulevard. I'm sure you know Southern Boulevard, about 163rd.
Yes.
Between the 6th train, Hunts Point, and Simpson.
Okay.
So we're on that spot in the middle by Aldous, and something happened on the boulevard. Dudes just wilding, and next thing you know, pop, pop, pop. I hear it. I turn around.
Ooh.
I see the smoke in the air.
Oh,
I think there was
shit.
a fight, and a dude wanted to stop the fight by shooting a gun in the air.
Sure.
Like,
Okay.
people not that bright. And we're like, holy shit. And there was a salon. So
A salon, go ahead.
one of them had the foresight of locking the door, banging on it. They're like, no.
Oh,
But
shit.
it's a bunch of kids not banging on the door. Like, open the fucking door. And then we just ran, but all that attention was that way. We ran the other way.
Sure.
And would I want them to experience it? No. I mean,
of course not.
where I lived on Ho Ave when I was a early teenager, somebody I knew, I forgot his name. I think it was Jason. Like, it was. I remember this day so fucking vividly. It was a weekend, and it was raining. All I heard was 2 shots. I look out the window.
I don't want to hear the end of this story.
Well,
Go ahead.
You're going to. But
I know where it's going.
body on the floor. I recognized the bike.
Oh my goodness.
And
How old was this young man?
He must have been like between 15 and 17.
And he's not with us anymore.
Done.
Sheesh.
And he was one of the young dudes,
Oh my
selling on the block.
God.
I believe his name was Jason. And
Look at that, man.
it was worse, of course, him and his family having to deal with his loss. But then people don't realize the ripples
Oh my God.
of people who
Till
experience
today.
it.
Till today.
I'm on the first floor. I live in. I was on the first floor, towards the front of the building.
Yeah.
And it happened right across the street. Before they made this whole building complex. That whole building complex that was between Ho and Southern Boulevard was a huge motherfucking parking lot. And then I hear that. All you hear is the rain, the shots. Everything's quiet.
Fuck,
I
man.
look out, and I hear the rain. You hear the raindrops, and I'm looking out the window, and I see him just laying there.
Same fucking movie, man.
And
Over
with the
and over.
fucking the bike twisted. It's one of those things
I
you're
can
never gonna
see it.
forget.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we don't want our kids to experience that.
A lot of there's
100%.
other shits that I've seen and experienced, and it's like, to make them as I would be to go through that.
No.
No,
No, no,
never,
no.
never that. I mean,
But there's stuff that you went through that made you who you are.
Yeah.
That if you were given the choice to go through at your young age, you would have said no. But it's good that you went through. Who knows what it was, because it made you stronger or whatever. But there's no way for us to know which ones are going to injure us.
Exactly.
Which ones are going to make us strong, right?
I mean, it's all for good or for bad. It's all formative experiences, and they're going through that with how you and your wife are homeschooling them, and there's no doubt they're gonna be great individuals because of who they have supporting them. Now, are they going through all this and everything that you guys are teaching them and everything? Are they showing any leanings towards college? And if not, I mean, would you guys steer them that way or play it by ear?
So that one is a little bit more. We have a little bit more control with that one, and the reason is because, first of all, both me and my wife are artists. We're not trained artists, but we're creatives, and I think that everybody is. It's up to you whether you have the courage to develop that, to go forward with that, express it, so on and so forth. I think everybody does, but it's difficult in today's society to make a living doing this stuff. It's some of the most difficult things to do. Find something you like and you're good at, and then try and make a living from that. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Because, I just so happen to like and be good at photography, and it's a very profitable industry.
Yeah.
But if I was a painter, it'd be a lot more challenging, right?
Yeah, you only make money after you die.
Shit. So, luckily, I can offer a service that many people want, and I can start a business from it, so on and so on. Regardless.
No, but you're very good at it.
Appreciate it. Now, college, our kids, we've taught them to be very expressive, to be on the creative side, and to be business oriented.
Right.
So start thinking already about, fine, you like doing this, you're learning how to do this, but you have to monetize this at some point.
Yeah.
So we've been doing that with them for a long time. And as we speak right now, both my kids, one is 17 and one is 11, they both have their own businesses. Now, are they successful businesses? No. But they have businesses. And that's what we're instilling in them. Nice. Okay. So they have their own businesses. They have their own social media platforms promoting these businesses. They're learning how to market, how to expose themselves, how to get out there, how to grow while continuing your business. So college is more of a trade school, right? It's you go there to learn something very specific. My kids are going to be creatives and businessmen. So look, first of all, do you need to go to school to be a businessman or woman? No. Okay. You know what you need? You need a talent or a service or a product and money. I don't need to spend $30,000 on tuition for them to fucking learn this or whatever it's gonna cost wherever they would go. If you want to be a doctor, go to college. You want to be a lawyer, go to college. If you need college, go to college.
Yeah, plumbers don't go to college; they have apprenticeships.
There you go. So college is not something that I don't think they're going to end up doing. Maybe they will. You never know what happens in the next 5 years, next 3 years, next 2 years with my 17-year-old. This is a time of radical change, because I remember when I was 17 and life moved very quickly at that time and changed very quickly at that time for me. So, look, if my oldest decides today, hey, I want to go to college, we got to find a way for him to go to college. And, you don't need high school to go to college. You could just knock on the doors, give them money, and they'll accept you. Some of them will make you do a entrance exam to make sure that you are suitable for their school. They want only the best, so on and so forth, blah, blah, blah. It is what it is. If he has to study his ass off because he wants to go to a particular college, and we got to go and take out a loan so he can go to college, then so be it, whatever. Yeah. I don't know if scholarships are an option for us. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't, because he doesn't have the school behind him. He doesn't have any report cards. He doesn't have essays or anything.
Right.
Doesn't have a track record in schools. So college is not, we don't even think about it or talk about it because they're going to be businessmen. This is America. You have to fucking make money, man. Like, that's it. What do you want? Like, go get your shit, man. Learn something, get good at it. I tell my kids, very plain English, you're going to find something you're good at and somebody is going to want your service.
Yeah.
Go give it to them. And that's it. You have a service, you have a product, you have something, go give it, go sell it to somebody. Get good enough where you could sell it to somebody.
Or it sells itself.
That's it. So it is what it is. So that's, stuff like that. We're learning the philosophy of business, the philosophy of marketing, the philosophy. These are the classes that we learn in our home. The philosophy of branding, the philosophy of language. And I'm really good with this stuff. That's how my business was able, because I'm good. I'm naturally good at some of these things. College is not really something we ever really think about. Hey, if he decides he wants to be a doctor, then we have to fucking put him in college because you can't go on YouTube and be a fucking doctor.
No.
Okay, so
jail's right after that.
Right.
No, how is this doing all of this? And it looks like you've incorporated it pretty well. Was there a certain point in time where this impacted the time for your business as well as your wife's time and work life?
Never. Because homeschooling is a very adaptable thing. And so I mentioned earlier in the podcast when I told you that when I opened my photo studio, the kids were there with me. Mm-hmm. They were there with me. They were at the studio, and I believe that they were doing homework at the studio sometimes, but most of their learning came from watching me run the business. Right. Interact with people. I didn't know what I was doing when I opened my photo studio. Again, I didn't follow anybody to do this. I didn't learn this from anybody. I opened the studio and had no idea what the fuck I was doing, which is the most beautiful thing that could happen to somebody like me. Not everyone functions that well under those circumstances. I flourish when I don't know shit.
Right.
The less I know, the better I'm gonna be because I'm such an independent person. If you're over there, I'm over here. Mm-hmm. I don't care if what you're doing is working. I'm gonna go over here.
Right.
While you're doing this, I'm doing that. And I'm so stubborn in that way, in a good way, and rebellious that I'd rather go the long way when I make it. And I've always gone the long way. And so for me, opening my studio and not knowing what the fuck I was doing and learning, and they watching me learn, and then they could see me now and go, wow, my dad did it. I watched him learn.
Right.
I watched him struggle. I watched him stutter. I watched him be stuck. I watched him in trouble. And then to also sit there and watch people go, your business is incredible. You guys are incredible. You guys are great.
Right.
To see that literal evolution from the beginning. And so how can you teach that in a format? And so this is what they learned while they were. So no, it never interfered in our business, and never interfered with my wife's job when she was working a standard job. Now we're both full-time photographers, and she has her own business where she does couture dresses for little girls. So she's trying to launch her business, which one day is going to be $1 million business. It never interfered. They're a part. This is our village. Mm-hmm. This is our village. It's all of us, and there is no interference. We are adaptive to this entire situation, and every time is the right time.
And it's true to fact that you don't really learn from reaching your end goal. The learning part is the journey.
Oh man, it's the best part.
Yeah.
And I've always been aware of that while I'm going through the journey. I love the journey, and I teach my kids to love the journey. The journey hurts, and it's good pain. Yeah. Love the pain. I love that pain. And I talk to my kids, just like I told you that right there. That's exactly how I talk to my kids. I say, you love that pain. You better go through that shit. That shit is the best shit in the world, man. It's the best sauce you will ever have in your life. So absolutely, you're 100% right on that. That's title that the podcast. That's it. Man, that fucking journey. I know we're talking about homeschooling, but it's all intertwined and
absolutely
and all this stuff.
And if you were to distill it, so the best and not so best things that you would take away from homeschooling kids
Right.
from inception to now.
You can't replace the social aspect of a standard school with homeschooling. You can't compete. You have to find something to fill that hole, and you're never gonna find it because ain't nothing like taking 300 kids and sticking them in a building for 6 hours. There's nothing like it. The ironic part is that I hated school, and so I would come home from school in high school with my mouth dry because I didn't talk all day. Because everybody in school was so fucking whack to me that I don't want to talk to nobody because all y'all are trying to fit in to this group, to that group. And I was so disgusted by high school that even though I was the best dressed kid, damn near guaranteed I was the best dressed kid in school, everyone thought I was a drug dealer. So much so that nobody talked to me, and I didn't give a fuck. I was never bullied. I never got robbed. All the girls wanted me, but I didn't want them. It was the best thing in the fucking world. I was the biggest mystery in my fucking high school. FYI, I went to school in Manhattan Center in Harlem on East 116th Street. That school was popping. FYI, Camera went to that school. Mace went to that school. Not while I was there, but right before I was there. So when I was there, all you heard was, oh, yeah, Mace. And, at that time, that's when they were popping off in the industry. That was the coolest fucking school I had ever seen in my fucking life. And I fit right the fucking, and I talked to nobody. So I didn't socialize in school, but I'm different. So, but I know that not everyone is like me, so people need that social aspect. I could survive without it. Now, I could survive without it because I knew who I was, and I knew that I had swag, and if I wanted to, I could fucking take this whole shit over, but I didn't want to. But I know that some people have to feel themselves out, know where they stand, so on and so forth. They're not as confident, and so school you can't replace that social aspect with anything, especially at that age range. You can't do it. So that would be one thing, and then the positivity. That's the negative. I can't.
Not so good, but
I can't think of anything else. No, because the way school teaches, it's just trash. And they can't teach kids the way you would homeschool your kids. And then the positivity of obviously homeschooling your kids is the culturing of it. Just going back to your roots of like villaging your kids. That's a phrase I'm going to make up right now. Villaging your kids. Villaging your kids. It's something, that these pros outweigh the cons by light years.
right.
Light year. So, there's always pros and cons to things. And there's going to be something that they don't get from homeschooling that they would have gotten in school. But I feel at the end of the day, what they're going to get from homeschooling is going to be so much more better. And I'm hoping that I'm right, that I don't let my kids down, that they don't end up one day going, Dad, you fucked up. You didn't make the best decision for me. You fucked up. I'm a fucking loser. These are my nightmares, right? I would assume that this is any parent who cares about their kid. This would be your nightmare, that one day your kid spites you. You should have looked out for me. They're gonna say this to you when they're adults.
I wanted that experience.
Huh?
Like they wanted that experience, the opposite.
Or maybe, or not, they felt that they would have became better human beings if they did have that experience. And I hope that that's not the case. I hope that me and my wife, who took a risk, me and my wife are big risk takers, and most of the time they pay off, and this is one of them. We risked it with our children. Society said this is the norm, and we said nah. And the society said if you don't do this, your kids will lose, and we said nah. What if society was right? I don't think they're right, but we'll see later on. So I think we'll be fine, and so the pros are just the learning experience, their mentality, the openness, their acceptance of everything. The conflicts that they would have to deal with in school, I can't give that to them, and I wish that they had it. So it's one of the cons that they, dealing with their peers and conflicting with them is important. But you also don't want to see Johnny get shot and experience that, right? So it's a radical example I just used, but what I'm trying to say is that some of these bad experiences sometimes end up being really, really bad.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of compare it to, maybe you could get my meaning, like to the movie Juice.
Sure.
And I believe that's the one with Tupac.
Sure.
That's the one that they're in. The city is for them.
Crazy movie.
And
Me and my
they're
brother were just
all-
talking about this movie.
They're all friends,
Yes, man.
and then it just devolves.
Fuck, man, crazy. We
You-
just had to, I have to watch this movie again, but I do the situation was so disgusting.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it just devolves throughout this film, and it's just out of control. And Tupac's character is the catalyst, and he's fucking out of control. This fucking guy, and that's scary shit, man. That movie is good because of that, but it touches on that world out there.
Yep.
There's you Oscar, there's parts, caves in life that when we go through them, we can't come back out of them.
Absolutely not.
We
And if
can't
we
come
do,
back.
we're some of us are insanely changed. Like,
Well, that's what I mean by not coming back. Meaning you'll never go back to normal.
yeah,
You'll never be yourself,
yeah,
who you were before you went into that particular cave. Scary situations there. There's a lot of stuff that could have happened to me when I was young, rambunctious, crazy.
yeah.
If I would have got arrested by the wrong cop, and he would have sent me to Rikers while I wait for a judge.
Mhm.
This happens to guys.
Yeah.
It's scary as shit for nothing that they did, because they were accused of doing stuff. They're in Rikers waiting for a judge.
2, 3, 4 years.
Fuck.
Yeah.
That could have been me.
And the kid that got out, that he
Yes.
was able to be released after being held
And
without.
and he ultimately committed suicide.
Yeah.
This kid, and that's what I'm referring to. It's exactly that story. That story is so scary to me. And when I hear those stories, I tell my wife, I said, "Baby, I was that guy. I could have easily been picked up by that cop. I was out and about.
Yeah.
You remember the Central Park 5?
Yeah.
I was that kid. Meaning I wasn't them literally, but that could have been me.
And then you have some freaking idiot that doesn't even believe they were exonerated.
It's scary stuff, man. And these men they're men now. They were changed forever. They went through that cave and came back out, and they were different, and they can never go back.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to have crazy experiences that I was able to control, and I didn't go too deep. I didn't get too involved with the cops. I didn't get too involved with the wrong group.
Same here.
I got just enough rambunctious, just enough craziness to go, okay, I can survive in the hood. I know my way around. I know when I see the body language here, I'm going to go back to what you said, read the temperature of the room. This guy's about to pop off. This situation is not good right here. We out of here.
And like you said before, like I know not to stand next to this dude.
Nope.
Or told my wife. I maybe have said it on the podcast. I don't know how I made it. I don't know how I made it from there to here.
Yeah, I consider, when I watch some of these stories, I tell my wife, I said, babe, you know how close I was to that being me?
Oh,
Bruh, and I have no idea. I'm just like living my life, blah, blah, blah. And then I
you
turn
think
into
it's
adult.
normal?
Yes. And then you grow up and you hear all these stories about all these kids who are men now, who went through the system, went through Rikers. Normal kids like me who are not bad kids, were not drug dealers, were not violent kids. They were normal kids having fun in the hood. And the wrong cop picked on the wrong fucking kids, man. And I go, damn, babe, that could have easily been me. And you never would have met me.
Yeah.
You never would have met me.
I compare it, and I don't even know if it's a fair comparison, but when you said it like that and how we're discussing it, it's like we're all walking in the herd, and we were fortunate enough to be in the middle of the pack.
Sure. Good
While
example.
some dudes were being picked off on the edges.
And meanwhile, you're in the middle of the herd, unknowing that the outside, everybody's getting picked off.
Yep.
But you're just chilling, like, ooh, life is good,
Yeah.
life is fun. I'm gonna jump this turnstile, or I'm gonna steal this soda, or I'm gonna steal this bike. I'm gonna play manhunt or tag in a park at nighttime. There could have been the right woman there going, they raped me. Shit. We want the best for our kids. In me and my wife's case, we happen to have been territorial parents, both of us. And we took destiny in our own hands.
Yeah.
And the story's still being told. My kids are great men. They're going to be great men to women, great men to society. They're going to be profitable. And it is what it is. That's what they're going to be. They don't have a choice. I'll retire into the woods one day.
I think that covers our final thoughts. Any shout outs you would like to give? I know you said your sons are running business, so shout them out, your wife.
Sure. First, let me give you a shout out.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your platform. I appreciate you. It's The second time I've ever really spoken to you, we had a preemptive talk at my photo studio during a party there that I had facilitated, right? And so it's great. For those who don't know, I don't know if you do this for all your guests, but you made me a bracelet, and it means a lot to me. There's no way for me to express it. I think it's great. I'm not gonna wear it every day because I think it's special, and I don't wanna mess it up. But I will definitely.
If anything happens to it, I'm like one of those companies. I'm like Timberland, like how Timberland used to be.
Yeah.
Just bring it back. I'll resole it.
I didn't know Timberland did that. I threw all my Timberlands out. I threw all my fucking Timbs out.
So yeah, anything happens to it, I'll definitely hook it up. But look, if you want to wear it, go right ahead.
Yeah,
It's what it's made for.
Well, I'm a rocket.
It'll be up on Instagram.
I love the thought. I really appreciate it. Your wife is incredible. Your kids are awesome.
Thank you.
You brought me into your environment. I really appreciate it. Stuff like that fascinates me, like I told you earlier when we were talking before the podcast. So somebody's environment is indicative of the people. So it's not separate.
Right.
And so I take away a lot from that. And so I appreciate that. So that's the first shout out, the main shout out.
Thank you.
Besides that, I guess I could just plug a couple things here. Me and my wife run our own photography studio, Real Depth of Field Photography. We have a studio in Mount Vernon, New York. I don't know if I should spell this damn thing out. Real Depth of Field.
You'll be all tagged up on IG. Yeah.
Good. So that's something we've been doing for 12 years. We're proud. We service mostly Black and Hispanic people. Everyone is welcome, but we are in Mount Vernon, and we, as you know, that community. And we draw people from Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn, Jersey, and Connecticut. They all come to our studio.
As you should.
I don't think anyone is doing what we're doing, being from where we're from and where we came from. So I don't think so we are doing a lot there. We're proud of it. And yeah. You'll see our work. Oscar will tag it. My kids have their own businesses. I'll give you the information. You'll put her on there. Luckamation, DNE, Creations. My wife has her own business. My sister-in-law who lives with us, she has her own business. We've been helping her with her business for some time.
What are the names of the
so it's Dear Liline. She does couture dresses. My wife does couture dresses from ages 1 to 13.
Nice.
Shirley has Noran Claire. It's a fashion line, a streetwear fashion line.
Nice.
Again, all the spelling will be in the description, I'm assuming.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you'll see the theme there. My whole family has nothing. They have their own platforms going on, their own businesses. They're building. So this is what we're teaching in our home, both to the adults and the children in the home. Everybody is learning this all at once. And then one more thing is I have an exciting platform called Hip Hop VCR. I'm going to make it quick on that one. When I was 1996, I was 15 years old. I started recording rap interviews and all kinds of crazy shit from MTV, BET, VH1. And I recorded for 8 years. Then suddenly, just last year, I decided to put them up on YouTube, and it fucking blew up.
Yes.
It blew up so much that I got shut down, and that's awesome. And so now I kind of restarted it. I think I'm very close to doing a podcast for Hip Hop VCR. Essentially, It's going to be about some unique perspectives about our hip hop culture from my era, because it's what I know best, and it's going to be very interesting. So Hip Hop VCR, and then I saw some merch for that too. It's great, and I have an Instagram for that. So all that, Oscar will link that in the description. And yeah, those I think that's it. That's what we got going on. We're always busy, always evolving and adapting and innovative. Innovation is the word of the century.
Nice.
In my home. Innovation.
And thank you very much for giving me your time, your thoughts, your views. It is very well appreciated.
God, it was a pleasure.
You will, everyone listening, visit my IG page, FYI I Am Damaged, all one word. Check us out. Check out the other episodes. And if you feel you have a story to tell, if you feel you have strengths to share, by all means, please reach out, like, subscribe. I'm all over the place. Just look me up, FYI IAD. Or FYI, I Am Damaged. Thank you very much for joining us on another episode of FYI, I Am Damaged.
FYI, I Am Damaged.
Carajo.
Coño.
Good night, everybody.
Peace.